Anna opened the book carefully, letting its familiar scent of aged paper softly fill her senses, and from between its faded pages, a worn cinema ticket slipped gently into her lap, settling quietly like a leaf drifting onto still water. Her heart quickened just slightly as she picked it up, fingers tracing over the faint print of the date, October 17th, a simple detail that whispered to her a memory she'd long tucked away. It was the night Daniel had asked her out, eyes hesitant and full of unspoken promise, a night when she had secretly prepared herself to say yes forever. Gazing down at the ticket now, Anna wondered quietly if Daniel ever knew about the wedding dress she had bought and carefully hung in the back of her closet that same evening, a dress she never wore, for words never spoken, had changed the course of their lives completely. Anna lived quietly in a small lakeside town in Maine, where autumn painted gentle strokes of amber and gold onto the sleepy streets, and life unfolded slowly enough for one to notice the seasons shifting without effort. At 43, she had settled into routines that were comfortably predictable. Yet beneath that calm, ordinary surface lay an unspoken restlessness, a quiet, persistent ache for something she could neither name nor entirely let go of. Her cottage, modest and cozy, faced the shimmering water, where morning mist lingered gently, wrapping her days in a soft, nostalgic veil. Inside, each room held traces of the past. Photographs of her daughter Maggie, now grown and away at college, sat neatly on a shelf, alongside books worn from countless readings, their spines softened by years of Anna's careful touch. Every evening, the crackling radio murmured softly, playing familiar love songs from the 90s, subtly echoing moments she'd lived through but never fully forgotten. Friends and neighbors saw Anna as steady, calm, even content in her solitude. Yet few glimpsed beneath that composed exterior to the woman who spent quiet evenings sorting through unsent letters and faded memories, secretly revisiting paths not taken. Years had passed since her divorce, long enough for bitterness to fade into acceptance, yet not quite enough for loneliness to bloom into freedom. And while others around her had long since moved forward, Anna found herself gently tethered to one particular October night. The night Daniel, the man she once imagined spending her life with, had almost proposed, but instead remained silent, and so had she. She sometimes imagined Daniel, now married and far away, and wondered if he too felt the gentle tug of that unresolved evening, if he still remembered the way she'd looked at him, silently urging him to speak. As Anna sat near the window, gazing at the quiet lake that had witnessed so many of her private reflections, she softly questioned if courage rather than fate had been their true undoing. If the simple act of speaking aloud the words they both had swallowed might have changed the entire story. And in those lingering, introspective moments, she found herself quietly inviting anyone who might be listening, perhaps even Daniel, somewhere out there, to ask themselves the very same question. Do we ever truly forget the people we almost loved, or are they destined to live forever within the gentle whispers of what might have been? The quiet rhythm of Anna's days rarely allowed for surprises. Yet on an ordinary Thursday morning, as autumn sunlight gently filtered through her kitchen curtains, something unexpected arrived at her doorstep, quietly unsettling her carefully preserved tranquility. Standing in her robe, holding a cup of coffee still warm in her hands, she discovered a parcel resting innocently on her porch. A mistake, clearly, meant for her neighbor down the street. Yet something in the handwritten address held her gaze, prompting her to carry it inside, driven by curiosity more than conscious thought. Setting her coffee aside, Anna carefully untied the brown string and unwrapped layers of delicate tissue paper to reveal an elegant, beautifully bound wedding album. Her heart caught softly as she flipped it open, recognizing Daniel's unmistakable smile staring back at her from glossy pages, alongside a radiant woman she had only seen in passing. Her breath came unevenly as she realized she had inadvertently stumbled into a moment that should have remained private. a glimpse into the life he had chosen, a life distinctly separate from hers. Yet, despite the faint ache spreading through her chest, Anna continued to turn each page slowly, as though compelled by a force stronger than her own will, absorbing images of Daniel standing tall in a tailored suit, his eyes reflecting a joy that once belonged solely to the quiet moments they had shared years before. It wasn't envy she felt, nor bitterness, but rather a gentle, poignant sadness that seeped quietly into her bones, reminding her of the countless dreams they'd whispered beneath starry skies, and promises left silently unfulfilled. When she reached the final photograph, Anna paused, her fingers trembling slightly as they brushed over the familiar site of the small lakeside church, the very place Daniel had once pointed out casually during an evening walk, softly mentioning how perfect it would be for a wedding someday. Back then, she had smiled warmly, heart swelling with the secret anticipation that he meant her. Yet now, staring at the church's quiet facade captured so beautifully in the album, she realized with sudden clarity that he had indeed found his someday, but without her. A quiet knock at her door startled Anna from her reflections, and she quickly closed the album, heart beating rapidly as she wrapped it carefully once more. Lauren, her childhood friend and neighbor, stood smiling on the doorstep, sheepishly apologizing for the mistake and reaching out for the parcel. Anna handed it over, forcing a polite smile as Lauren paused, noting Anna's strained expression, and gently asked if she was all right. Anna hesitated for just a breath before softly responding, "It's nothing, just memories," knowing that Lauren, having known her for so long, understood exactly what she meant. Closing the door gently behind Lauren, Anna leaned heavily against it, eyes closing briefly as she let the quiet, complicated waves of emotion wash over her. She couldn't deny the ache this unexpected reminder had stirred, nor could she ignore the quietly insistent questions now surfacing from somewhere deep within, questions she had carefully avoided asking herself for years. And as she stood in that familiar silence, she recognized, perhaps for the first time clearly, that the life she had so carefully built around her quiet loneliness was not the sanctuary she had believed it to be, but rather a fragile refuge, vulnerable to sudden intrusions of a past she could never fully escape. In that poignant moment, Anna understood that her carefully guarded heart had been quietly hoping all along, for closure, for answers, or perhaps simply for the gentle peace that could come only from facing the truth of what had once been possible, and accepting, finally, that it could no longer be. Several days had passed since the quiet upheaval of the wedding album, and Anna found herself gently slipping back into the comforting monotony of her life at the library. The crisp autumn air outside turned colder, and golden leaves fell softly, scattering gently across the small town streets and settling quietly into familiar patterns along the sidewalks. Anna had always found peace within these walls, surrounded by well-loved books and the gentle whispers of turning pages. Today, however, a familiar face appeared among the shelves, causing her heart to quietly stir. Lauren stood there, gently smiling, eyes crinkling softly at the corners, her presence instantly transporting Anna back to simpler, more carefree days. They exchanged greetings warmly, their conversation flowing effortlessly from casual chatter about the weather and their children, to shared nostalgia over memories from their shared youth. Yet, beneath the comfortable rhythm of their words, Anna sensed something unspoken lingering in the spaces between Lauren's careful sentences, and she waited quietly, sensing there was more to come. After a brief pause, Lauren carefully shifted, her weight, eyes gently searching Anna's face before she softly spoke. "Anna, I ran into Daniel not too long ago. He was back in town visiting his family." She paused slightly, as though gauging Anna's reaction, before continuing quietly. "He asked about you." Anna's pulse quickened slightly at Lauren's words, her heart murmuring questions she couldn't quite form aloud. "Did he?" She finally responded, her voice measured and quiet, not fully masking the gentle curiosity beneath her composed exterior. Lauren nodded gently, a small, sympathetic smile crossing her face. You know, he mentioned something. I wasn't sure if I should tell you at first, but I think you deserve to know. Lauren hesitated again, seemingly uncertain of her next words, before softly continuing. He mentioned the night he took you to the cinema, years ago, back when we were younger. He said he had planned something special that evening. Something important. He said he even bought you a ring, a real engagement ring. But when the moment came, he lost his nerve. He couldn't speak, couldn't ask the question he'd rehearsed 1,000 times. He just sat there quietly, frozen, terrified you'd say no. Did you ever know? Anna felt a quiet rush of air leave her lungs, as though something heavy had lifted yet settled again, differently this time, onto her heart. Her memories suddenly shifted, reframed by this gentle revelation, forcing her to reevaluate every moment, every small hesitation she had misunderstood as indifference. No, she replied quietly, voice gentle yet slightly unsteady. I had no idea. Lauren sighed softly, sympathetically placing a comforting hand on Anna's shoulder. I think he's carried it all these years, Anna. You both have, really. This silent regret. This almost love. Maybe knowing this now can give you both a little peace. Anna nodded slowly, attempting a faint, reassuring smile. Yet inside, something deeper stirred quietly. A soft, aching regret tinged with hope. As Lauren said her goodbyes, gently walking out the door, Anna stood motionless, absorbing this quiet revelation, the quiet library once more embracing her solitude. That evening, Anna returned home feeling both lighter and infinitely heavier, her heart quietly grappling with the gentle tragedy of their mutual silence. All those years she'd spent believing Daniel had never truly cared enough, never loved enough, dissolved into quiet recognition. He had loved her deeply, profoundly even, but fear had been stronger. Fear, that quiet thief, had stolen from them. A lifetime of shared moments, a future gently unfolding together, simply because neither had dared to speak their truth aloud. She poured herself tea, carried it quietly into her sitting room, and sank softly onto the worn, familiar armchair by the window. Outside, the lake was gently rippling beneath the fading evening sun, water softly lapping against the shore, the sound comforting yet melancholic. Anna sipped her tea slowly, eyes gently unfocused, mind drifting through the silent corridors of memory until she remembered clearly the details of that cinema night. She had sat beside Daniel, the lights dimmed softly around them, her pulse fluttering quietly with anticipation. She remembered the quiet tension radiating from him, remembered how he had suddenly become distant, distracted. She had misunderstood it then as a quiet withdrawal of his heart, never realizing he had been trembling inside, courage faltering, just at the edge of speaking aloud those life-changing words. She closed her eyes, recalling that after the film ended, they had walked home silently beneath a quiet autumn sky, both hearts aching quietly with words they could not speak. Anna realized now, clearly, that her own silence had matched Daniel's, mirrored his quiet hesitation, inadvertently closing the door to their shared future. Suddenly overcome by gentle impulse, Anna stood quietly, walking softly to her bookshelf, pulling down a well-worn novel she'd read countless times, tracing her fingers along its spine before flipping open the familiar pages. Tucked carefully inside lay a folded paper, a small note she had written to Daniel, years ago. A note she had never sent, words she had never dared share. She unfolded it gently, carefully reading her own handwriting, the quiet confession she'd kept hidden so long. The note said simply, "If you had asked, I would have said yes." Standing alone, quietly holding this unsent note, Anna allowed herself a moment of gentle grief for the life they could have shared, the gentle laughter of a family they'd never raised together, the quiet comfort of shared evenings they'd never experience. And yet, despite the tender pain of this newfound understanding, Anna felt something else. A quiet, unexpected freedom emerging from the depths of regret. A gentle realization that truth, even years later, still held the power to softly set one free. In that quiet, poignant moment, she folded the note once more, softly whispering to herself words that Daniel had never heard. I wish we'd both had more courage. But perhaps knowing this now is enough. As darkness gently enveloped her quiet home, Anna finally allowed herself the gentle, quiet hope that perhaps it was never too late. Not for the life they'd imagined, but at least for peace, closure, and the quiet dignity of having truly loved and been loved, even if only in silence. In the days that followed Lauren's quiet revelation about Daniel's unsaid proposal, Anna found herself moving through her daily life with a newfound, gentle restlessness, as though a door she had quietly kept closed for many years had silently swung open, inviting memories back into her life with irresistible persistence. She felt, quite suddenly, as though she were walking through two worlds at once. Her carefully structured present, with its familiar routines and predictable rhythms, and the past, a place softly illuminated by the tender glow of nostalgia, now heightened by the fresh ache of things newly understood. Her days at the library became gently punctuated by vivid, almost tangible memories. Every whispered conversation, every book sorted and shelved, every quiet moment alone amidst the comforting scent of aging paper brought echoes of Daniel's laughter, his voice gently reciting lines from favorite poems, his soft presence beside her as they shared quiet afternoons, reading side by side in sunlit corners. It was impossible now, Anna realized, to separate herself fully from these gentle invasions of memory. Each recollection carried with it a quiet insistence, softly urging her to revisit the places where their almost love had unfolded, and where the unspoken words had remained quietly suspended between them. One particularly crisp autumn afternoon, Anna found herself gently drawn back to the cafe near the edge of town, a small, charming place whose warmth had long ago made it their favored refuge. She took a quiet seat in the corner, the same table they had chosen countless times, and allowed herself to softly sink into the familiar surroundings, feeling as though time had gently folded back upon itself, layering past and present seamlessly together. The murmur of quiet conversations, the clinking of cups, and the gentle hum of familiar music provided a comforting backdrop as she let herself remember. Closing her eyes momentarily, Anna recalled their quiet conversations, how they'd planned, their futures in whispered, hopeful tones, never quite fully spoken aloud but hinted at gently, shyly, in careful exchanges and shared smiles. She remembered Daniel's careful manner, his gentle hesitations, the subtle ways his eyes had searched hers, always looking for something she hadn't fully understood at the time. Now, seated alone at this familiar table, she realized those quiet moments had contained countless unspoken promises, delicate dreams woven softly between their unsteady breaths. From the cafe, she wandered slowly along quiet, tree-lined streets toward the small lakeside park, its benches now weathered but still holding quiet dignity beneath the autumn leaves. Sitting down, Anna felt a tender ache as she remembered evenings spent here with Daniel, their shoulders softly brushing as they spoke quietly of everyday things and deeper truths they'd never fully articulated. She recalled vividly one evening, when he'd quietly whispered that he imagined their life together unfolding gently, like pages turning in a beloved book. His voice had been quiet yet filled with meaning, and she had known instinctively that he meant something profound, yet neither had dared take the next step toward voicing it fully. She sighed gently now, recognizing with quiet clarity how often fear had governed their hearts. She realized that their love had never faltered through lack of feeling. It had stumbled only on their quiet hesitation, the silent uncertainty that neither had ever fully overcome. A gentle sorrow settled upon her as she considered this truth. Yet alongside sorrow, there was something softer, gentler, a recognition that their love, though silent and unfinished, was real and precious precisely because it had been held so quietly, so tenderly within their hearts. As she continued revisiting these quietly significant places, Anna found herself compelled one evening to return to the small cinema, a quaint local theater tucked unobtrusively at the end of Main Street. Approaching it, she paused quietly at its entrance, heart quickening softly as memories flooded her mind. She remembered vividly how Daniel had stood there, nervously adjusting his coat, eyes bright yet uncertain, his hand trembling slightly as he'd handed her the tickets. She had sensed even then something significant beneath his nervous smile, though she'd misunderstood it entirely, mistaking hesitation for reluctance, silence for indifference. Stepping into the softly lit lobby now, Anna purchased a ticket, quietly, selecting the same seats they'd occupied so many years ago. As the film began, she sat quietly, heart heavy with bittersweet recognition of this return, alone, to a place that had marked the beginning of their silent undoing. She watched the screen without truly seeing, her mind gently replaying the quiet moments they'd shared here, the words they'd left unspoken, the tender possibilities silently slipping away. It was a gentle pain, one she welcomed, understanding finally that love's silent endings deserved recognition just as much as its spoken beginnings. Days turned quietly into weeks, and Anna continued her subtle pilgrimage through places gently, haunted by memories. During this introspective journey, her daughter Maggie frequently reached out by phone, their conversations warm and quietly supportive. Maggie's voice, so full of youthful optimism, gently reminded Anna of herself at that age, of a time when love seemed simpler, when silence hadn't yet become the barrier she now knew it to be. Maggie unknowingly encouraged Anna's quiet exploration, providing subtle reassurance that it was safe, perhaps even necessary, to gently confront the past she had long avoided. Amid these reflective days, Anna sought comfort in her friendship with Evelyn, whose gentle wisdom had long provided quiet stability in Anna's life. One quiet afternoon over tea, Anna softly confessed her discoveries and regrets. Evelyn listened carefully, eyes gentle with understanding, before quietly reassuring Anna that love's greatest tragedy lay not in its endings, but in words left unsaid. Yet even those unsaid words, she gently reminded Anna, had their quiet dignity and worth. Encouraged by Evelyn's gentle words, Anna found the courage one evening to retrieve the carefully preserved wedding dress she'd purchased the night Daniel had taken her to the cinema. Unwrapping it gently, Anna's fingers traced the delicate lace, the fabric whispering softly of dreams she had silently cherished, yet never spoken aloud. Holding the dress, Anna finally allowed herself to fully grieve the quiet losses they'd both suffered. Not just the marriage they'd never shared, but the quiet companionship, gentle laughter, and whispered promises she'd imagined filling the eye. Years they hadn't lived together. Yet alongside this quiet grief, Anna found herself experiencing a gentle clarity, a soft acknowledgement of her own silent bravery. She understood now that to love quietly, patiently, without ever demanding recognition, was itself an act of quiet courage, one worthy of respect, even admiration. Though their love had never found expression in words, it had existed fully, beautifully, in the gentle, quiet ways they'd carried each other silently through the years. One afternoon, a donation of books arrived at the library from an anonymous local donor. Sorting quietly through them, Anna discovered a volume Daniel had cherished deeply, and tucked within its yellowed pages, she found a letter unmistakably written in his hand. Heart trembling quietly, she unfolded it carefully, reading his soft confession, the gentle, heartfelt acknowledgement of his lifelong regret over that silent proposal he'd never voiced. His words revealed a truth quietly devastating yet healing. Daniel had never ceased loving her. He'd carried her silently within his heart through the quiet decades that had passed since their separation. As Anna read his quiet words, gentle tears fell softly washing away the lingering ache she'd carried unknowingly all these years. She understood finally that their silent misunderstanding had defined their love not as a failure, but as something gentle, profound, and quietly beautiful in its own right. Carefully folding Daniel's letter, Anna gently tucked it into her pocket, carrying it quietly home, feeling at last a gentle peace settling within her heart. That evening, seated quietly by her window overlooking the peaceful lake, Anna softly wrote her own letter, a gentle reply Daniel would never read, but one she needed deeply to express. She wrote tenderly of forgiveness, understanding, and quiet gratitude for the love they'd silently nurtured, acknowledging gently that perhaps their greatest shared courage had been loving deeply, even when words had eluded them both. Closing her letter softly, Anna knew now with quiet certainty that silence, though painful, had never truly diminished their love. It had simply wrapped it gently in mystery, quiet resilience, and unspoken grace. As the autumn night gently enveloped her, Anna felt quietly comforted, understanding finally that their love, though silent, had been as real and profound as any openly declared. It had existed quietly, beautifully, in the gentle spaces between them, and perhaps in the end that quiet truth was enough. In the gentle stillness of early November, as the last golden leaves drifted quietly from the trees, Anna began to feel herself softly approaching an emotional crossroads, the culmination of all the quiet truths she'd recently discovered. Since finding Daniel's unsent letter hidden among the pages of the donated books, her heart had been quietly wrestling with an unbearable yet tender ache, a sensation she recognized not simply as grief or longing, but as something deeper and more complicated, born from the sudden revelation of a life that might have been, had silence not so thoroughly shaped their story. Each day, Anna moved quietly through her familiar routines, carrying within her the gentle weight of newfound clarity, haunted softly by Daniel's words, by the quiet sorrow he'd expressed for never speaking his love aloud. Yet alongside that sorrow, she felt a subtle peace, a delicate understanding that their silence had never signified a lack of love, but rather its quiet, vulnerable excess, each of them afraid to voice the words that could have changed everything. 1. Afternoon. As she sat quietly in her cottage by the lake, sunlight gently filtering through the faded curtains, Anna's phone softly vibrated on the table, pulling her gently from her reflections. Glancing at the screen, her heart softly quickened at the familiar name, Lauren. Answering the call, Anna's greeting was gentle, subdued, betraying nothing of the quiet turbulence within her. Lauren's voice, however, held a careful hesitation, quietly signaling that something significant lingered behind her casual hello. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Lauren finally admitted softly, "Anna, I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but Daniel is back in town briefly, visiting his mother. He asked about you again, seemed restless and distracted. I think maybe he's been dealing with the same memories you are." Anna felt her heart momentarily pause, then resume beating quietly, more rapidly, as Lauren's words settled around her, gently altering the silence that had so long defined her connection with Daniel. Quietly thanking Lauren, she ended the call softly, heart now beating with a quiet urgency, the boundaries of her solitude suddenly feeling fragile, almost transparent. For hours afterward, Anna sat quietly by the window, watching the gentle ripples on the lake and contemplating the unexpected news. Her mind wandered gently through possibilities, considering carefully whether she should reach out, if the quiet threads connecting them through years of silence might now gently guide them toward closure or reconciliation, or perhaps both. As night fell softly, Anna found herself restlessly pacing her cottage, pulled gently yet powerfully toward action. Finally, she quietly pulled on her coat, stepped outside into the cool evening air, and began walking slowly toward town. The quiet streets were softly illuminated by gentle street lights, their glow creating small pools of warmth and shadow along her path, mirroring her own quiet uncertainty and hope. Her footsteps carried her, almost without conscious direction, toward the lakeside church, the same small, peaceful sanctuary Daniel had chosen for his wedding, the place he'd once gently pointed out as perfect for theirs. Anna paused softly outside the church gates, heart trembling gently beneath the quiet weight of past and present, feeling herself standing at the delicate intersection of her own silent history and the unknown future. As she quietly moved closer, Anna noticed a solitary figure standing gently beneath a lamppost, silhouetted softly against the quiet backdrop of the lake. Her breath caught softly in her chest as she recognized Daniel, standing quietly, gazing out across the still waters. He looked older, gentler somehow, yet unmistakably familiar. The quiet essence of the man she had silently loved for so many years now standing just a few feet away, utterly unaware of her quiet approach. Anna hesitated softly, wondering if perhaps she should retreat, quietly return to the safety of her solitude. But something quiet yet insistent within her pushed her gently forward, softly urging her toward the quiet courage she had long avoided. Finally, stepping forward quietly, she softly called his name, her voice gentle, trembling slightly as it pierced the quiet evening. Daniel turned slowly, and for a moment both stood quietly, gently absorbing the quiet shock of seeing each other after so many years of silent absence. His eyes, filled softly with surprise and quiet tenderness, searched her face carefully, gently tracing the familiar lines and subtle changes wrought by time. He stepped forward slightly, his voice quiet, yet steady as he softly murmured, "Anna, it's been so long." In that quiet moment, their silence spoke more eloquently than any carefully chosen words could, gently acknowledging the quiet space between them, filled with years of unspoken longing and gentle regret. Daniel finally spoke again, quietly, softly confessing, "I hoped you'd come here tonight. Lauren said she might tell you I was back. I needed to see you." Anna nodded softly, her heart quietly unfolding beneath the gentle weight of his words. She found herself quietly admitting, voice gentle yet brave, "I found your letter, Daniel, the one you never sent. I've carried it quietly, carefully these past days. It meant more than you can know." Daniel smiled gently, eyes glistening softly, as he quietly acknowledged her words. "I wrote it years ago, Anna, but I never found the courage to send it. I thought perhaps silence would spare us both. I never realized silence could hurt more deeply than rejection." Anna stepped softly closer, standing quietly beside him, both gazing gently toward the darkened lake. She finally spoke softly, her voice gently breaking through the quiet tension between them. "We spent so long being quiet, Daniel, so many years avoiding words we needed to speak. I think we both silently feared losing each other more than we ever truly feared being together." Daniel quietly reached for her hand, holding it gently, tentatively, as though afraid of shattering the fragile peace they'd just carefully established. He whispered softly, his voice barely audible yet filled with quiet sincerity, "You were always the one, Anna. My silence never meant I didn't love you. It meant exactly the opposite. I loved you too much, too quietly, afraid of losing everything, by asking for more." Anna gently squeezed his hand, her heart softly aching, yet tenderly comforted by his quiet honesty. She turned to face him fully, gently meeting his eyes, softly confessing her own quiet truth. "Daniel, if you had asked me that night, I would have said yes without hesitation. I bought a wedding dress. I dreamed of our life together. My silence was never rejection. It was fear, just like yours." They stood quietly beneath the gentle glow of the lamppost, softly holding hands, the silence between them now gently reshaped, not by unspoken words, but by quiet understanding. After a quiet moment, Daniel carefully reached into his pocket, gently withdrawing a small, familiar box, softly placing it into Anna's hands, his voice quiet, yet steady. "I've carried this for so many years, Anna, waiting quietly for the courage to finally give it to you, even knowing it might now be too late." Anna opened the box gently, heart catching softly as she gazed down at the ring he'd chosen so carefully, so tenderly years ago. She quietly lifted her eyes to meet his, both gently acknowledging the quiet significance of this moment, the gentle tragedy and beauty woven together in this overdue gesture. She spoke quietly, voice gentle and filled with soft emotion. "It's never too late, Daniel. Not for this quiet truth between us. Even if we can't reclaim the past, we can finally acknowledge it, speak it aloud, let it quietly guide us toward whatever future waits ahead." Daniel nodded softly, gently pulling her into an embrace filled quietly with years of tender regret and gentle forgiveness. They stood quietly together beneath the gentle autumn sky, finally allowing the quiet strength of their unspoken love to carry them forward. No longer bound by silence, but gently freed by the truth they'd finally shared aloud. As they eventually parted, promising quietly to speak again soon, Anna walked home slowly beneath the quiet stars, feeling gently changed, deeply grateful for the quiet courage they'd both finally discovered. She understood now, clearly, profoundly, that their silent love had never truly ended. It had simply waited patiently, quietly within them both, ready to be gently claimed when their hearts were brave enough to speak. Arriving home, Anna softly placed the ring box on her bedside table, gently reflecting on the quiet beauty of this moment, understanding finally that even silent loves have their quiet redemption. She knew clearly now that their love had quietly shaped them both, deeply and irrevocably, and tonight they had gently reclaimed its truth, not as regret, but as quiet hope, gently held within their hearts. Following that quietly pivotal evening by the lakeside church, Anna carried within her heart a gentle yet profound sense of newfound peace, believing softly that perhaps the quiet reconciliation they'd shared had finally allowed them to mend what silence had quietly broken. Over the days that followed, she and Daniel exchanged gentle, tentative messages, their words carefully chosen yet genuine, softly bridging years of unspoken distance, allowing them both to imagine the quiet possibilities of reconnecting, perhaps, even healing old wounds. But life, in its quiet unpredictability, often writes its own endings, independent of hopes softly harbored or dreams quietly nurtured. One cold November morning, as Anna quietly prepared her tea, a soft knock at her front door broke through the peaceful solitude of her home. Surprised yet unalarmed, she opened the door gently, her breath catching softly at the sight of Lauren standing quietly, eyes red-rimmed and filled with quiet sorrow. Lauren's voice trembled gently as she stepped forward, placing a hand carefully on Anna's arm, quietly speaking words Anna's heart instinctively recognized as bearing painful news. "Anna, there's something I need to tell you about Daniel." Lauren's voice was gentle, almost apologetic, as if knowing the quiet pain her words would inevitably cause. Anna felt her heart tighten softly, her pulse quickening gently in apprehension. She quietly invited Lauren inside, sensing the weight of something deeply serious in her friend's careful movements and softly hesitant manner. Sitting together in the quiet living room, Lauren gently took Anna's hand, pausing momentarily, searching softly for the right words before quietly beginning her careful explanation. "Daniel was taken to the hospital early this morning," Lauren finally said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He collapsed at home suddenly. They found something, a condition he's apparently had quietly for years without knowing. It seems serious, Anna, more serious than anyone realized." Anna felt a quiet numbness spreading gently through her chest, her mind softly struggling to fully comprehend Lauren's careful words. The quiet hope she'd carried over the past few days suddenly felt fragile, brittle beneath this gentle yet harsh truth. Her voice shook softly as she asked, barely audible, "Is he going to be all right?" Lauren's eyes softened gently with sorrowful compassion as she squeezed Anna's hand softly. "I don't know, Anna. I wish I could say yes, but the doctors aren't certain yet. He's stable, but they're cautious, saying things about risks, uncertainties, complications. They wanted you to know, though, because he asked for you specifically." Anna's heart quietly tightened further at Lauren's gentle revelation, the words settling heavily, yet gently upon her, carrying both the quiet sweetness of Daniel's request and the soft agony of its implication. After a quiet moment, she gathered herself carefully, standing softly, voice barely steady. "I need to go see him." Within the hour, Anna stood quietly beside Daniel's hospital bed, the room softly humming with the quiet rhythm of monitors and gentle medical equipment. Daniel's eyes were closed softly, his face pale yet calm, breathing gently beneath the stark white sheets. Anna quietly sat beside him, gently taking his hand into hers, heart aching softly as she felt its quiet warmth, fragile yet reassuring. After several quiet moments, Daniel's eyes slowly opened, focusing softly on her face, a faint smile gently emerging. His voice was soft, weak yet tender. "Anna, I'm sorry you had to see me like this. I didn't expect it, not now. Not after finally finding you again." Anna gently brushed her thumb softly over the back of his hand, voice quietly comforting despite her own gentle pain. "There's nothing to apologize for, Daniel. I'm here with you exactly where I need to be." He looked at her carefully, eyes filled softly with quiet regret, gently murmuring, "We wasted so many years, Anna. So many quiet moments we never took because we were afraid. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of loss. Now, more than anything, I regret our silence. I regret not loving you louder." Anna's eyes filled gently with tears, her heart quietly breaking beneath his careful confession. She spoke softly, yet firmly. "We both carried silence, Daniel, and we both share that gentle regret. But the truth we discovered, the quiet truth of our love, that matters more than all the silence. We found each other again, and that's enough." He smiled gently, squeezing her hand softly. "I know we finally found each other, Anna, but I'm afraid it might be too late. The doctors warned me it could get worse quickly. There's so much I want to say, so much I need you to hear, things that silence took away from us." Anna shook her head gently, softly leaning closer, voice quiet yet determined. "Then speak them now, Daniel. I'm here. I'm listening, and nothing, no silence, no fear, can take that away." Daniel's eyes glistened gently with unshed tears, voice quiet yet powerful with emotion. "Anna, you were the only one, the only woman I ever truly loved, the only life I ever genuinely imagined for myself. My silence was never a choice, it was my greatest mistake. I should have spoken years ago, I should have married you that night. I should have given you that ring, should have lived every quiet dream we whispered beneath the stars. If I leave, this world know this clearly, I never once stopped loving you." Anna felt gentle tears softly fall, her voice shaking slightly, filled quietly with love and anguish. "Daniel, your love was never lost on me. It stayed quietly alive, even through all the years we were apart. It's here now, with us in this room, stronger than silence or regret. Please know that." He nodded softly, eyes gently closing, clearly tired from the emotional strain, yet comforted by her quiet reassurance. Anna sat quietly beside him through the gentle hours that followed, carefully holding his hand, softly whispering quiet reassurances until sleep gently claimed him again. In the silent hours that followed, Anna understood clearly, painfully, that life sometimes offered second chances only to quietly reclaim them. The gentle tragedy unfolding before her now was not merely Daniel's illness, but the quiet realization that silence had quietly stolen from them a lifetime of memories, love, laughter, a lifetime neither could reclaim. Yet beneath this quiet, tragedy lay a gentle clarity, a tender strength Anna hadn't fully realized she possessed. She vowed silently, gently within her heart, to honor Daniel's quiet courage, to carry forward the truth they'd finally spoken aloud, to never again allow silence to gently shape her life's path, robbing her of quiet moments she desperately needed to live. When Daniel quietly awoke again, they spoke gently of simple things, favorite memories, quiet dreams they'd never fulfilled, laughter they'd quietly shared. And in the quietest moments, they softly forgave themselves and each other for all the quiet mistakes they'd both carried. As evening softly settled around them, Daniel quietly whispered something Anna would remember forever, his voice gentle, yet certain. "If this is all we have, Anna, just these quiet moments together, I want you to know they mean everything. You were always my quiet truth, my silent hope, my deepest love." Anna gently leaned forward, softly placing a kiss upon his forehead, quietly replying, voice filled with quiet strength, "And you were mine, Daniel. Always." When she left that evening, quietly returning home alone beneath the gentle glow of the moonlit sky, Anna felt profoundly changed, gently marked by this quiet tragedy yet stronger for the truths it had quietly revealed. She knew clearly now the quiet, profound cost of silence, and she quietly vowed for the rest of her life to never again leave essential truths unspoken. Back at home, as the quiet night surrounded her softly, Anna held Daniel's ring carefully, in her hand, understanding gently, deeply, that their love, though shaped by silence and tested by tragedy, had always been real, profound, and precious beyond measure. Quietly, softly, she accepted the quiet pain and gentle beauty of their story, knowing clearly that some loves remain forever quiet, forever unfinished, yet forever true. In the gentle weeks that followed Daniel's hospitalization, Anna felt herself quietly adjusting to a life that had, once again, shifted softly beneath her feet. Her days were filled with quiet visits to his bedside, their conversations softly, punctuated by careful recollections of past joys and quiet regrets, each moment cherished yet fragile. Daniel's health wavered gently, improving slightly, then declining quietly once more, the doctors remaining cautiously optimistic, yet subtly preparing them for every quiet possibility. Amid these quietly uncertain days, Anna received a small, carefully wrapped package delivered discreetly to her doorstep. No sender indicated, no note attached. Carrying it gently into her quiet living room, she carefully unwrapped it, hands softly trembling, heart quietly anticipating something meaningful hidden within its layers. Inside, she discovered a collection of letters, worn softly by time, their envelopes yellowed and faded yet unmistakably addressed to her, in Daniel's gentle, familiar handwriting. With quiet reverence, Anna sat carefully in her favorite armchair by the window, softly unfolding the first letter, her breath catching gently as she recognized its date. Written nearly 2 decades earlier, just weeks after that pivotal night at the cinema, the evening Daniel had failed to speak his proposal aloud. Her eyes quietly filled with tears as she began reading softly, heart breaking gently with every carefully chosen word. In the letters, Daniel had quietly poured out every unspoken truth he'd carried inside, revealing softly, gently, how deeply he'd loved her even then, how desperately he'd regretted not asking her to marry him, how he'd silently tortured himself with the quiet certainty that she didn't feel as deeply as he did. Anna's heart ached gently as she realized each letter was filled not just with love, but with quiet apologies. Endless, gentle apologies for failing her, for quietly misunderstanding her silence, for allowing fear to rob them both of the quiet happiness they deserved. Letter after letter revealed the quiet depth of Daniel's love, a love that had never once diminished or faded, but had quietly persisted through the long years they'd lived apart. Each quiet confession was an apology, a promise, a gentle whisper of regret and longing, a quiet testament to his silent devotion. He had carefully chronicled his life, his gentle attempts to move forward, quietly acknowledging that no one had ever filled the quiet spaces Anna had left behind. No relationship, no marriage, no moment had truly erased the quiet truth that his heart had always belonged silently to her. The final letter, dated only days before his sudden hospitalization, carried a gentle urgency, a quietly desperate plea for forgiveness, understanding, and peace. Daniel's words trembled softly across the page, his handwriting slightly weaker yet filled with quiet conviction. Anna, if there's one thing life has taught me, it's this. Our greatest tragedies are the quiet truths we leave unsaid. I don't know if we'll ever have the future we once dreamed of, but I need you to understand this clearly. You were, are, and always will be my deepest love. If fate never grants us another chance, at least let these words reach you now. Know that my silence never meant indifference. It meant fear. Fear of losing you. Fear of hurting you. Yet silence hurt us far more profoundly than words ever could. I love you, Anna, endlessly and quietly, beyond time or circumstance. Whatever happens, this quiet truth remains forever yours. Anna sat quietly, letter clutched softly in her trembling hands, tears streaming gently down her face as she absorbed Daniel's quiet revelation. She understood clearly now the depth of their mutual misunderstanding. Each had quietly assumed the other's silence meant rejection, when in truth, silence had always been their gentle, yet painful shield against imagined loss. Her heart broke, softly, tenderly, knowing they'd both carried silent pain for so many unnecessary years. Quietly determined to see Daniel immediately, Anna quickly dressed and carefully gathered the letters, gently placing them into her bag, heart racing softly as she stepped out into the cool evening air. Arriving quietly at the hospital, she moved softly through its sterile corridors, reaching Daniel's room and finding him awake, quietly staring at the ceiling, eyes gently contemplative beneath the room's dimmed lights. He smiled faintly, softly as she approached, eyes gently curious when she placed the small bundle of letters carefully beside him on the bed. "Where did you find these?" he asked quietly, voice gentle and hoarse with emotion. "They were delivered anonymously," Anna replied softly, voice trembling slightly yet filled with quiet tenderness. "Daniel, reading them? I understand now. We wasted so many quiet years misunderstanding each other, each assuming our silence meant something it never did. We both carried this quiet love, this quiet regret, without ever realizing the other felt exactly the same." Daniel's eyes gently filled with tears, quietly admitting, "I should have spoken clearly, Anna. I should have trusted you enough to voice my truth instead of quietly carrying it all these years. Silence stole so much from us, so many quiet possibilities we never explored." Anna gently took his hand, softly holding it within her own, her voice quiet, yet deeply certain. "Daniel, I forgive the silence. I forgive it all, because I finally understand clearly what it meant. Our silence never diminished our love. It simply kept it safe until we were brave enough to speak. And now, even if it's late, we finally have." Daniel nodded softly, eyes gently searching her face, carefully tracing each line formed quietly by time and gentle sorrow. His voice was tender yet steady, quietly resolute as he whispered softly, "Anna, no matter what happens now, whether I have days, weeks, or years, know clearly and forever, you were never forgotten. You were always loved, always remembered, always silently cherished. Anna's heart quietly flooded with gentle warmth and profound sorrow, a tender acknowledgement of their shared tragedy, yet quiet triumph of truth finally spoken. She leaned softly forward, gently placing her forehead against his, quietly breathing in their shared peaceful silence, a silence now filled not with pain, but with quiet redemption. They stayed quietly together like that, each gently absorbing the quiet truth they'd finally shared, softly allowing it to mend the gentle wounds silence had inflicted. Eventually, Daniel spoke softly, his voice gentle, yet brave. "If life grants us only these quiet moments, Anna, then let them be enough. Let this quiet truth, our love spoken aloud, our regrets gently forgiven, guide us forward, no matter how short or long our journey remains." Anna nodded gently, eyes filled softly with quiet tears, yet smiling softly through them, her heart quietly affirming his words. "It's enough, Daniel. Our love spoken clearly, finally, it's more than enough." As the night gently enveloped them, Anna stayed quietly by his side, understanding profoundly that sometimes the quietest truths held the greatest power, that their quiet love, though shaped by silence and marred by misunderstanding, had quietly endured, gently waiting for the moment they finally found courage enough to speak. When Anna eventually left the hospital later that evening, she felt quietly changed, gently freed by the profound revelation they had shared. She understood clearly, deeply, that their quiet love, now finally acknowledged aloud, held a gentle strength powerful enough to heal even the deepest wounds. At home, sitting quietly by her window, Anna gently reflected on their journey, softly, recognizing that while silence had quietly defined their past, truth now gently illuminated their future, however brief or uncertain it might be. In that quiet, tender moment, she felt clearly, deeply certain that their love, though long held, silent, would always speak more powerfully than any words ever could. In the gentle months that quietly followed, life carried on softly around Anna, the seasons changing slowly yet steadily, bringing with them quiet reminders of the tender cycle of endings and new beginnings. Daniel's condition stabilized somewhat, allowing him to return quietly home. Yet doctors remained carefully cautious, gently reminding them both of the fragility and quiet uncertainty of his health. Despite this, Anna and Daniel quietly embraced each day as a softly granted gift, choosing gently to honor the preciousness of their time rather than dwell on its quiet impermanence. They spent quiet hours together, sharing gentle walks beside the lake, revisiting places they had once silently loved in youth, softly reclaiming their shared history with quiet courage. Each moment was filled gently, deliberately, with the quiet truths they'd finally spoken aloud, their hearts now quietly freed by honesty, no longer burdened by silence. Yet beneath the gentle rhythm of their newfound closeness, Anna quietly sensed the soft reality that lay ahead, a reality shaped not by fear or bitterness, but by gentle acceptance. Daniel, too, seemed quietly aware, his eyes softly reflective, carefully absorbing each quiet moment, as though gently collecting memories he knew he might soon quietly leave behind. One gentle spring evening, as twilight softly settled around their quiet lakeside cottage, Daniel sat quietly beside Anna on the familiar bench facing the lake, the gentle breeze softly brushing through their hair, the quiet waters shimmering softly beneath the fading sun. For a while, neither spoke, their silence no longer painful, but instead gently filled with peaceful acceptance, quiet gratitude for the time they'd reclaimed. Eventually, Daniel turned softly toward Anna, eyes filled gently with a quiet tenderness and a deeper unspoken wisdom. His voice was soft, gentle yet resolute, quietly acknowledging the reality they'd both carefully avoided speaking too clearly. "Anna, we've both known quietly, from the beginning of this second chance, that time, may not grant us forever. But these moments, these quiet, precious days we've shared, they've felt like forever. I need you to understand this clearly. Finding you again, speaking our quiet truths, has given me more peace than I ever thought possible. Anna's heart gently tightened, eyes softly filling with quiet tears as she carefully took his hand into hers, her voice gentle yet deeply strong, quietly responding. Daniel, no matter what time remains for us, know this clearly. These quiet moments, this love we've finally spoken aloud, have been everything to me. You've always been my quiet truth, my silent strength, and I will carry you with me, gently, forever, no matter what. Daniel smiled softly, gently brushing her cheek with careful tenderness, voice quiet yet steady as he spoke. Promise me this, Anna, when the quiet day comes when I can no longer sit beside you, when I'm quietly called away from this world, promise me you'll never again choose silence over truth. Live gently but fully, speak your quiet truths bravely, love openly, without hesitation. Let the quiet lessons we've learned guide you forward, not as regret, but as gentle wisdom. Anna nodded softly, gently absorbing his words deep within her heart, her voice quiet yet powerfully certain. I promise you, Daniel, I'll never again allow silence to quietly define me or steal away what truly matters. I'll live each quiet moment bravely, gently, truthfully, always carrying your love softly within me. They sat quietly together as darkness softly enveloped the lake, gently holding each other's hands, allowing their quiet promises to settle gently around them. In that moment, Anna felt clearly, quietly, profoundly grateful, not just for Daniel's love, but for the quiet courage they'd both finally found to speak their truths aloud, to reclaim the gentle beauty their silence had once softly hidden. Several weeks later, as spring gently blossomed into full bloom, Daniel quietly passed away in the peaceful stillness of early morning, leaving Anna softly alone but profoundly changed, forever marked gently by the quiet power of their shared love. She mourned quietly, tenderly, allowing grief to softly accompany her in gentle companionship rather than overpower her. At his quiet funeral, Anna stood gently among friends and family, quietly honoring Daniel's life, not with regret or bitterness, but with gentle gratitude, speaking clearly and bravely of the quiet truths they had learned together, truths that had quietly freed them both from the gentle tyranny of silence. In the quiet weeks and months after Daniel's gentle passing, Anna moved softly through life, embracing each quiet day with gentle courage and quiet strength. She visited familiar places softly, tenderly carrying memories of Daniel quietly within her heart, memories that no longer brought quiet pain, but gentle comfort. The lake, their favorite cafe, the quiet bookstore, all gently became places of quiet reflection, filled softly with their shared history and gentle truths, reminders of the quiet strength she'd discovered within herself because of him. Over time, Anna quietly honored Daniel's memory by gently sharing their story with others, speaking bravely of the quiet tragedies silence had created, yet also quietly testifying to the gentle redemption truth had ultimately brought. She gently encouraged those around her to speak openly, bravely, quietly, yet clearly, to never allow love to remain silently unspoken, no matter the gentle fears or quiet doubts that might arise. Eventually, Anna quietly wrote a book, a gentle, heartfelt collection of letters she'd never sent, letters addressed softly not just to Daniel, but to herself, quietly exploring the tender truths she'd discovered, the gentle regrets she'd faced, the quiet forgiveness she'd found. Each letter carefully expressed the quiet lessons she had gently learned through love, silence, and loss, offering quiet yet powerful reminders that true love, whether spoken aloud or held gently in silence, never truly leaves us. Her book, Quietly published and shared softly among readers, gently resonated with countless others who had quietly carried similar stories. Stories defined softly by silence, quiet regret, and ultimately, gentle forgiveness. Readers quietly wrote to her, thanking her gently for giving voice to their quiet truths, for reminding them gently, powerfully, of the quiet bravery required to speak love aloud. In the quiet solitude of her cottage, Anna carefully reflected on these gentle connections, understanding softly, deeply, that Daniel's quiet legacy lived on, not just within her gentle heart, but softly within the quiet lives they'd both touched, through their shared truths quietly spoken. She understood gently, profoundly, that their quiet love had transcended silence, time, even death itself, becoming gently immortalized in quiet stories shared, truths softly spoken, and gentle lives quietly changed forever. One gentle evening, sitting quietly by the lake, Anna carefully held Daniel's ring, the same one he'd finally given her beneath that quiet autumn sky, gently tracing its smooth contours with quiet reverence. Gazing softly out across the peaceful waters, she quietly whispered to the gentle breeze, her voice soft, yet clearly resonant with quiet strength. "If you ever wondered, Daniel, yes, I loved you deeply, quietly, bravely. Our silence shaped us, yes, but in the end, our quiet truth set us free. I'll carry your love gently within me, always, letting it guide me softly toward whatever quiet future awaits. Thank you for teaching me this quiet courage, this gentle wisdom. Thank you for loving me, even when silence stood softly between us." Anna gently slipped the ring onto her finger, softly feeling Daniel's presence quietly surround her, a gentle, timeless comfort she knew she'd carry quietly for the rest of her life. Rising softly, she walked quietly toward her home, heart gently, filled with quiet peace, knowing clearly, profoundly, that while their love had never been loudly declared, it had quietly, tenderly, truly spoken volumes. And perhaps, Anna thought gently, quietly, that was always enough.